It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. Give me a subscribe on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@randywangradio, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. I will always have a deep affinity and respect for the service industry. It's the first job that I had, and before I fell ass backwards into radio, there was a time where I thought I would go into restaurant management because I loved the food service world. I started at the age of 15 being a cashier at Six Flags Magic Mountain at the Kittyland burger stand called Wascals. I ended up working at almost every shop in that entire theme park and got a real taste for it, although this is what's funny. You know, I was a teenage manager. I got promoted to a lead employee and then eventually to a supervisor. And I was still 17. So I had a special badge because I wasn't, technically they usually don't make 17-year-olds managers, but I was a supervisor. And I was a supervisor at the big sit-down restaurant they had there called the Moose Burger Lodge. Doesn't exist anymore. But I remember one day, sometimes when you're the manager, you kind of have to fill the gaps wherever it's needed. So if I needed to wash the dishes, I would wash the dishes. But they were short a waiter. They were short a server. And this is the only sit-down restaurant in the park. Everywhere else, it's cashiers. And I don't know if it's the same now, but at least then, none of these were, places that had tip jars or tips or anything like that, except for the sit-down restaurant. And so for the very first time, I was at this point, I was 18. I was 18 and I waited on a table for the first time in my life. And it was scary, especially this was a 2-story restaurant and you would have to carry a tray of these we had these really heavy pewter plates that these burgers and fries would be on. They were for theme park food, it was pretty darn delicious. But I was always afraid of carrying a drink tray, of carrying a food tray, because I had not really done that. Again, I was the person in charge of all these people, but I had no idea what I was doing. But after I got over my fear, I really loved the performance of it all. And what I really loved was, as a manager at Magic Mountain, I was making $8 an hour. Which, okay, let's do some quick math here. What is that? What is that for an 8-hour shift before taxes? I mean, this is 2004, 2005. No, yeah, it was around 2004. So let's say $8 an hour times 8. I'm making $64 a day pre-tax. Not a whole lot of money. Now, the waiters, they get tips. And you would not be surprised. The bills are quite high at a theme park sit-down restaurant, even for, the Moose Burger, which had this jalapeno cheddar roll. So I thought it was it was definitely the best burger in the park. Like, it was a full-on half-pound chuck patty. We had a nice griddle. It wasn't like the other places where we would take the frozen meat patty and shove it into the conveyor belt. No, there was real cooking here. But when you were a waiter and you waited on tables, the first time I ever did that, I walked out of there with $100. So way more than I was making on a salary. And at that point, I was like, okay, that's pretty awesome. A year later, I worked a summer at TGI Fridays as a waiter. And I loved that job. I learned a few things about how to charm a table. I knew a few things from being somebody who was a customer, that I knew that if I made sure the waters and the sodas were always refilled, they'll be happy. Another thing that I figured out how to do, and you can't even do this anymore because now everyone has their little toast tab. They've got their portable tablet menu. They just type everything in right there. Well, in my day, in 2005, You had to write down everybody's order and then go punch it into one of the computers. But I always had a knack I have a very good memory for certain things. And I learned that if I memorized the menu, memorized what the table ordered, and I didn't write it down, and I successfully got them what they ordered without writing it down, it was always impressive. And I always acted very confident, like, oh, I know, I can remember this. And I did it great. And so many nights would walk out of there with $100, especially if you got to work the patio on a Friday or Saturday night, because in 2005, the TGI Fridays patio at the Valencia Town Center Mall was probably the most poppin' place in town. You work that patio, you do cash and carry, you get people their drinks, their giant fishbowl-sized margaritas. You do pretty darn well. But of course, there is a downside to being a server. One, I think it's still the truth, but, you are going to get less wages because you're getting tips, and tips are not guaranteed. Sometimes you can be the most charming waiter in the world, but if something happens, you could be losing out. You can be charming, you can make sure the waters are refilled, but if the food doesn't come out on time, or the food comes out wrong, or there's an issue, that can ding you. You have, and this happened to me once, you get tables that dine and dash. It sucks. And the policy at TGI Fridays at the time was, if you get dine and dashed, you have to pay for that meal. I don't know if that's the case anymore. So some nights you can do pretty well. Some nights not so well. And there is definitely an inconsistency towards it. But I guess the idea is, if you're charming enough and you work hard enough, you can make some decent money. It's why so many actors who are just starting out in their career, their day job is a waiter. The hours are flexible and you can make cash. You can have money in your pocket today. But there is a certain class of person who, the way the job market is dwindling, and AI is taking away a whole lot of different things. There are more and more people who, while a service job may be something you only thought you would do in your 20s, it ends up being something you do into your 30s and your 40s. And, there are professional waitstaff and professional servers and obviously professional bartenders who do this for their entire life. And at some point, does it make sense, if you're at a high enough level, that we have to elevate above tipping culture? And I say this as somebody that tips very well for everything, but it really has gotten out of control where, yes, you're tipping for great service at a restaurant, you're tipping for great service at a bar, but you remember how when Lyft and Uber came out, the whole point of it was you don't have to tip like a taxi driver, and then they started paying their drivers so little that they really push you to tip, and now I have a default on my Lyft that it's like automatic 25% tip, which for some of those LAX airport runs can be quite a bit, but hey, that's a tough gig, and that's also a gig that's probably going away soon, so I understand it. Well, I bring all this up because there's a restaurateur in San Francisco that is kind of feeling what's going on, where people are getting exhausted by the tip culture, by having to add a gratuity to everything. So he's trying something different. He is trying to have a all-inclusive dining fee. You go in, you know exactly what you're paying per person. You cannot tip because the waitstaff are making enough money that they don't need the tip. Let's find out if this makes any sense and if this is how the world should be. Here is a report from KPIX in the Bay.
So in a city celebrated for its world-class dining, great food is never hard to find in San Francisco. But a straightforward check.
I should really get into my next contract that I have to be in San Francisco once a month just to try the restaurants.
But a straightforward check, good luck. That's a much rarer course on one restaurant serving up something bold. As our Itai Hod reports, it could be just the tip of the iceberg.
See what she did there? She said tip.
It's another packed night at La Cigale, where Chef Joseph Magadow is the star of the show. He's preparing a high-end southern French feast for the 15 people who were lucky enough to get a front row seat.
It's all family style.
It looks like the start of any other great dinner, until you realize this place has cut out the part that usually causes the most indigestion.
You get to the end and all of a sudden you have this check and it's like a Spirit Airlines bill where it's like plus this, plus that, plus that.
Well, and that's the other thing. It's not just the tip, but you have service fees, kitchen staff fees, which, by the way, as somebody that worked in a kitchen, I was very jealous for a long time. Wait, why don't we get tips? We're a big part of this operation, too. And you have certain restaurants where they have security fees. And yes, it is starting to look like an airline.
So La Cigale did something rare. They 86 the surprises, restaurant lingo for taking them off the menu. Food here is all-inclusive, $140 per person. No tax, no service fees.
Oh, wow, that's tax included, too. Okay, that's also interesting.
No tip.
There's no tip line on the check. When you sign your bill, that's the end of the transaction.
A growing number of restaurants are now test driving tip-free dining, a pushback against what many call tipflation. A recent survey found 41% of Americans think tipping has gotten out of control. Among them, Jenny Bennett.
Everywhere you go, even for the smallest little item, they're flipping around the little iPad.
Servers here make up.
And it used to go like 10, 15, 20. Now it's like 18, 20, 22. But again, I lived that industry. If it wasn't for some ridiculous luck, I'd probably still be in that industry. And, those jobs are hard. Those jobs, you are on your feet, you are working your butt off. And, I have a huge respect for good service. I mean, gosh, I probably get treated to some of the best service ever when I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico, because most of the, job market out there is the service industry. Unless you are wealthy or you have a remote job, you're probably working at one of the restaurants or one of the hotels. And the people there, they are so much fun. They are so charming. They really love the experience. They love the food. And, I do my part as a customer to make sure that these people are living okay.
Servers here make about $40 an hour.
Okay, then. Now, if you have a restaurant where you're charging an all-inclusive fee and the server's making $40 an hour, that's pretty cool. And you don't have to tip, but you know that everyone there is making a really decent living. $40 an hour, you could probably actually live in San Francisco.
Servers here make about $40 an hour, whether the night is slow or slammed. The upside, more stability. The downside, no more of those big tip nights.
Of course.
But for Claire Bivens, it's a trade worth making.
It creates a sense of security for everyone and definitely takes a degree of pressure off from each night.
I mean, yeah, there's a little less uncertainty. Now, you might also think, well, does that mean they're not going to work as hard to charm you? Probably not, because the people that are at the top of their game, they know what they're doing. And if you know you're going home with, okay, now again, we did that math, right? When I was a manager at Magic Mountain in 2004, I made pre-tax $64 a day. If you're making $40 an hour for an 8-hour shift, that's $320 a day. Wait, do I make that?
La Cigale also offers paid vacation, a perk most restaurant workers only dream of.
Unless you're at In-N-Out Burger, they give you paid vacation.
But for Chef Magadow, ditching tips also means leaving behind an old system.
It was a model that was created to take formerly enslaved people and put them in a position where their wages are still being controlled by the guest.
Okay, that's one way to look at it.
As for the bottom line, it hasn't taken a hit, says hostess Laurel Jansen.
You guys are fully booked.
We are fully committed this evening.
Fully committed.
Because here, the only tip you need is to show up early. Everything after that is just gravy.
Well, you knew there was going to be a pun in this story. So I'm curious what you think about this. You go to restaurants, you go to bars. What do you think of this idea of all-inclusive dining? You don't have to worry about the taxes and the tips and the fees. You know exactly what the cost is of going to the restaurant. And you also know that the people serving you aren't living on tips. They're making I'd say even more than decent. They're making good wages to do that job. What say you? Would you prefer to be dining at restaurants where you don't have to tip because they pay their wait staff enough? What say you? I'm torn on this because no, you know what? I'm not torn on this. I think I would be willing to pay more up front than to have the fake price of what is on the menu multiplied by 25%. Give me the full price, what it is for the person who is serving me to be able to make a living, and I'm all for it. Might be getting a smaller plate, but I'm going to order from your restaurant. But what do you think about this? The idea of all-inclusive dining, paying upfront what everything is going to cost, and you don't have to tip because the servers are making a full wage. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Do you think this is the way restaurants should go? Do you think it's time that we rethink the whole model of tipping 20-25% on every single purchase? 800-222-5222. 1-800-222-5222. You all go out, you all eat out, get on the line and tell me what you think about this by giving me a call right now. 800-222-5222. 1-800-222-5222. What do you think about going to a restaurant where the price is all inclusive and you don't even tip? 800-222-5222. 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. A restaurant in San Francisco is trying something new. With the exhaustion of tipping culture, they're charging an all-inclusive fee, $140 to dine there, and that includes your tax, that includes your tip, and all kinds of other fees, and they're paying the wait staff $40 an hour, so you don't even have to feel bad about not tipping. What do you think about this? Is it time to rethink our tipping culture? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Let's start with Jay in Irvine. Jay, hello.
Thank you very much for taking my call. Yeah, I really like the idea that you proposed or the restaurant proposed. Because I'm a cash person, and nowadays you go to restaurants and then they don't even bring you that slip that you can add your tip. They bring you this gadget that you need to pick what kind of tip you post there. And it used to be their option of 5 or 10%. Now the options start at 12%, 15%, and 20%. So I really like the idea of including tax and tip in the price on the menu. That sounds great to me.
Well, I tell you, I really do like one aspect of it, and that is, when you walk into the restaurant, exactly what you're going to be paying for. Yes.
And if you're going there with somebody that you're not quite intimate with, and then they watch you going over the bill and looking at the gadget, I don't like that embarrassment on my part.
That's a really, really, really good point. If you're on a date, there's something so classy and so confident about, like they bring you the old book that's got the receipt. You don't even look at it. You just put the gold or the platinum card in there. Now you have to figure out how to stick your card and tap on the doohickey. It is not nearly as romantic as it used to be. That's a really good point, Jay.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing this up.
Well, thanks so much for calling in. Appreciate it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Sean in Corona. Sean, hello.
Hey, I do business overseas, and I traveled to China about a dozen times over the last decade, and they do not tip there. And the service is not terrible. It could possibly be better, but I've gone to some fairly nice restaurants in the United States where, especially when we have parties of, more than 5 or more than 6, they put the automatic gratuity in there. And I've noticed when they do that, the level of service is just not as good. I mean, I had one guy, he was trying to light the candles around the table, and literally he's got his arm is in my food. And I'm stuck paying this guy. Yeah, and I'm stuck paying this guy this great tip. A little frustrating.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Let me tell you, a trick that I used to do when I worked at TGI Fridays was if you had a party of, I think at this time it was 8 or more, it was automatic gratuity. I always said, well, they're supposed to make us do automatic gratuity, but I'm not going to do that to you guys. And the automatic gratuity was 18%. Every time I did that, they tipped at least 20%.
I agree. If you're working and you're doing your job, like you said earlier, I'm going to tip you at least 20, maybe better. But I don't want to be beholden to tip you 20 if you're doing a terrible job and I get one glass of water the whole damn night and I never see you again.
Oh, yeah. See, that's the biggest mistake you can make. Thank you so much for the call, Sean. Appreciate it. My advice to all you up-and-coming waitstaff out there, make sure that water is refilled and refilled often. In Santa Fe, they're so good about it because the altitude is so high that you need to stay hydrated constantly. And so it's a really nice thing. Even they always walk around and make sure the dogs have water. Oh, you want a good tip? Treat my dogs well. You're going to get a fantastic tip. 800-222-5222 is the phone number. 1-800-222-5222. A restaurant in San Francisco is doing away with tipping. They're doing an all-inclusive price for the meal, and they're paying their servers $40 an hour. What do you think about this? What do you think about our current tipping culture? 800-222-5222. 1-800-222-5222. If you're on hold, stay right there because we're going right back to the calls next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@randywang.radio, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. We're taking your phone calls right now, 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. A restaurant in San Francisco is changing the game when it comes to tipping culture. They are charging an all-inclusive fee that includes your tax, includes the fees, and includes the tips, and they're paying their waitstaff $40 an hour. What do you think about our current tipping culture? What do you think about this idea of all-inclusive dining? 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Let's start with Ted in L.A. Ted, hello.
Hi, Randy. How are you today?
Doing great.
Listen, I think it's a great idea because I'm getting people at regular counters in stores asking me for a tip. I mean, they push these screens in front of you, and what do? Oh, no, I'm not going to give you a tip. I mean, it's really stupid. You give a tip for extraordinary service, and I tip a lot, but I am not tipping the barista as I go through Starbucks anymore. I usually give them a once-a-year present, and I find it dreadful that we're going to this system where everybody gets a tip. Even you. Do I have to tip you?
Well, at this point, I should just tell you what my PayPal is, and you can tip me for this rail boy. By the way, there are a lot of podcasters out there that is how they make their living. They do advertisements, but they also all have Patreon channels, which is kind of like tip. And this is true. When I originally hosted a podcast 15 years ago, before there was any money in it, we had a literal tip jar on the website, and people would pay us to do the radio show. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to charge you for this, but I appreciate your call and I appreciate your time, Ted. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. And I invented that idea. I mean, I was the first one to do it in 2009. I was also the first one to figure out the Amazon affiliate program. Now everyone does those things, but believe you me, I had to use a Gavin Newsom term. I had to iterate. I had to constantly think of ways to make money because we were making no money at this podcast for many years. And then we stopped doing it, and now people make tons of money on podcasts. But, I'm not complaining. I like what I do. Let's go to Myrna in Lomita. Myrna, hello.
Hello, Randy. Hey, I'm just sure that Gavin Newsom and his, whoever follows him, unless it's a Republican, would find some way to tax the whole amount. Even though they're saying they're figuring it out, I think that the government will sideswipe them and figure it out for themselves, and it's going to end up costing more and more anyway. I like it in
California
Europe.
is really good at that.
They sure are. They sure are. But I also agree that being hit up for tips in every, nook and cranny wherever you go to buy something is just ridiculous. So.
Yeah, it is getting a little out of control, but I understand it is hard for everybody out there, but, it's also hard for the customer, too. It's a delicate balance. Thanks so much for the call, Myrna. Appreciate it. I will say it's interesting. When you look at something like Gavin did, the state of California's $20 an hour minimum wage for fast food workers, something that is interesting about that is that does also mean more payroll taxes for the state of California, puts you into higher tax bracket for the employees, and sometimes makes it so you're making enough money that you get kicked off of certain welfare programs. So, yeah, the state does have an interest in raising certain wages. Let's go to Kay in Seal Beach. Kay, hello.
Hi, Randy. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I'm an executive with a big restaurant company here in California, and I think this has got to be some sort of gimmick to get people to talk about this restaurant because I do not think it's sustainable, and I don't think it's a good idea. And here's why. First, your last caller mentioned the taxes. This is going to impact both income and payroll tax for that company, for the restaurant. But if you think about it from a service model, the best servers can make more than $40 an hour. And so you're going to get mediocre servers who don't care if they do a good job providing service to you as a customer, as a diner, because they know they don't have to work hard for a tip. Whereas the better servers who understand how to make more money can go work at a different restaurant where they do get tips. They'll give much better service, and they'll end up making more than $40 an hour when you include tips. I just don't think this is a good business model at all for restaurants, for dine-in restaurants.
Well, I think you make a really good point, and I have seen servers at certain fine dining restaurants who are the ones that really know what they're doing, that this is their career. Yeah, they can clear $500 a night easily.
Easy. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I don't think you have to work in fine dining to make that.
Yeah, I love all your knowledge and everything. You're an executive with a big restaurant company. You got to email us so we can figure out how we can do a live remote.
Oh, that would be so fun. I will do that. That'd be great.
Yeah. Send me an email. Send me your info at randywangradio@gmail.com. Let's connect.
Okay, that's great. Thanks a lot, Randy. I appreciate it.
Thank you. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Look, we would love to do more remotes. We get so many emails. What are you guys going to do more remotes? And do a remote specifically for this show or for the John and Randy show. We just need more venues to do them, and we need more sponsors. But we can get that done. And then we'll go hang out in Orange County. We'll go hang out in Riverside. We'll go hang out in San Francisco. We'll go hang out in Santa Clarita. But yeah, you got a venue for us? Email us, and it is very easy to get those things going once we have the right relationships, because we love spending time with the audience. Let's go to Kevin in Rancho Santa Margarita. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin, hello.
How are you doing, Randy?
Doing great.
I think it's good. I think it's a terrible idea. I grew up working in a restaurant, and I mean, nowadays, whenever I go to a restaurant, I'm always like looking at the service and kind of grading it. Most of the time, it's not very good. But I mean, the last time I went out to dinner with my wife last week, we go out quite a bit, but I think I gave a $25 tip, for our meal. And you get, like the last lady said, you're going to make a lot more than $40 an hour. especially in San Francisco, if it's in a nice restaurant. So I think the wait staff will probably be disappointed in it. But they're going to have to. I mean, I can't imagine what the food costs are going to be. It'll be quite a bit more, and I would rather over tip for good service and kind of, I guess, under tipping 15%, but I'd rather be in control of what I tip for the service that I get. I think it's a terrible idea.
Well, I think you make some really, really, really strong points, Kevin. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. And I will say, it is nice to be able to, when someone goes above and beyond and really takes care of you, you really take care of them. Let's just say there's a bar or two that I frequent in a certain mountain town, and every once in a while they pour me a lot of tequila that I didn't necessarily ask for, and I make sure that everyone is well taken care of. That is a good relationship. I'm sad I'm not there right now. Let's go to Dylan in Long Beach. Dylan, hello.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Doing great.
Great. I was just listening to you, and you just changed what I was going to say. I think you nailed it. I think it's the relationship. I think that we're losing our relationships with everything. Now we're losing our relationships with restaurants. We're losing our complexity, the detail. I don't mind that a restaurant wants to try something. That's kind of what America is all about. I just don't want Gavin Newsom to say we all have to do it from now on. That's what I don't like. It might even create a cool market, to where certain restaurants, that certain waiters, they're more personable. Maybe it becomes more of a Hollywood thing again because you know where you're going to get that personal service in like an old school Vegas situation. So again, you know what? I like workers getting paid more. I was on the fence about the $20 an hour, but I would like to see people actually working, getting off their butt, doing something, getting paid, instead of what most of Americans do, including myself at some point, sitting in a desk, wasting time. Anyway, thanks for letting me talk.
Well, thanks so much for the call, Dylan. Appreciate it. I agree with you on that one. I did come around on the $20 an hour minimum wage because, one, market forces, especially in towns like LA, were already pushing them higher than $20 an hour. I think the Del Taco near the radio station at one point was trying to advertise for $22, $23 an hour. In-N-Out Burger is like $24, $25 an hour. I mean, yeah, the food got more expensive, but I eat it a little less, but I think they're still doing okay. It's just nice to know that, if everything went away, if I was no longer able to do this, I could always go back into the food world. I've always said, there's a safety net. There's two kinds of safety nets, right? There's the safety net of, okay, you lose your job, you lose everything, you go on unemployment, you go on other assistance, and you retrain to do something else. But, if you're willing to stand on your feet 8 hours a day, and not everybody can do that, and you're willing to be in a very fast-paced environment, I would go work at In-N-Out Burger. Tell you right now, I'd work my way to one of those manager jobs, and those managers, I think, make more than I do. And I've been doing this for 20 years. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. If you're on hold, stay right there. We'll get to more of your calls next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to Zira in Redondo. Zira, hello.
Hi, Randy. Straight to the point.
Hi.
Back in the 70s, when I was a beautiful young thing, minus brains, I worked at a supper club. I made $1.35 an hour. I took home about $90 a night, 5-hour shift. Back standard of living was $125 for a beautiful apartment with a yard and a garage. Standards were very high. Okay, I agree with that. The restaurant lady with the high that you wanted to talk to about doing some whatever. You give people a big check, they stop servicing your customers. They stop smiling at them and feeling like they are privileged and they don't have to work for the money. I like the performance of it. Like you said, it was an art to carry a tray full of drinks, and I remembered every one of them, and the refill, and keep the ashtray, they could smoke back in those days, clean of ash in the bottom of them, and a dry napkin under their drink when it sweat. It was a beautiful challenge. I remember those days. Memory Lane Supper Club.
Well, I love it. And it sounds like you did very, very well at that supper club. Love to hear it, Zara. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. And there really is. I mean, look, LA's an interesting town because there's a lot of people that are waiters that really want to be an actor, really want to be a musician, really want to be something. But you go to certain towns, especially towns that are known for tourism, Santa Fe being one of them. Like the people there, that is their career. And I know so many that take so much pride in it. Literally, you go to some of my favorite restaurants, and they're not even expensive restaurants. The Shed, every single person in there treats you so wonderfully. Even though they are slammed constantly and it's the busiest restaurant in town, they always add that personal touch. And they make us feel like VIPs because we go so often that everyone's like, hey, you're back in town. And what do you say? I melt like butter with that. Thank you all so much for all the calls and for the emails. Over the weekend, I got to go up to Santa Barbara wine country. I hung out at Foxen and went to the Foxen Shack and the Foxen members only club room. We went to a great tasting at the Almarosa El Jabali Ranch House, and we went to Fiddlehead at the barn. I'm going to be posting videos of all those experiences. You can check them out on any of my social medias or my YouTube channel. And I just posted a video of what I made last night for dinner, my easy 30-minute salmon avocado pesto recipe. Check out that recipe by going to youtube.com/@RandyWangRadio and hit subscribe. Why not? It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.